Good morning and welcome to the Jimmy Daytona Show. I have today Danielle Winters, who's got multiple interests such as perfumes, PhD work on behalf of veterans and their mental health, interests with birds, dogs, eagles, the Mets, skating, and her new time on TikTok as well. So I'm looking forward to hearing a lot of what she has to say. She's also recommended some really high end colognes for me too, such as the Zarawana by Night and Aqua de Palma. And Danielle, I know you've been wanting to come on the show for a while, and thank you for coming on at long last. I am so happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen you, since you were here visiting, and so it's really cool to get the opportunity to touch base with you and talk about some cool stuff.
Yeah, and nice to meet Breezy as well.
Sorry, I think sometimes my internet is a little bit wonky here,
Um,
so I apologize in advance for that. But
yeah, nice to see Breezy as well.
oh, here. Oh, yeah, you'll hear her later.
Yeah,
It'll
yeah,
be
she'll
fine.
come back on the air whenever she sees fit.
Yeah,
Um,
she's sitting on my monitor, so you'll probably hear her. But
I've been very impressed with your Professor Perfume YouTube channel, and as I alluded to earlier, you're my go-to as far as recommending high-end colognes and perfumes. How did you get that YouTube channel started, and how did you get into perfumes to begin with?
well, I appreciate your kind words. There's so many different opinions on fragrances, and I never cease to be amazed by how two people can smell the same fragrance and one person can love it and one person can hate it. Like it's just such a varying thing depending on so many things. So when I was younger, like way younger, like still in elementary school, um, that's kind of the first time that I can remember really being into fragrance. Like my mom had purchased me a bottle of Pavlova, and then also like a mini bottle of Chloe, for Christmas one year. And because I think I had shown some kind of like movement towards being into things that smelled good. Um, and so that's really when I think back to my fragrance journey, which is a terminology I actually hate. But when I think back to the very beginning, that's when it really started. And my mom was actually a perfume enthusiast too, back in the day. Not so much anymore, but she was a fragrance enthusiast when she was younger and used to collect a lot of perfumes and um so then, I have to say that during COVID, when I was looking for something to kind of like get myself into to sort of forget about some of the stuff that was going on, it sort of reinvigorated my hobby again. Like it was always there, but it really got kind of pronounced. And then that's when I decided to start the channel. When I had all of this stuff to say about perfume, and then, figured, okay, let's do it. So I did it. And it's not a very well kept channel. Obviously, I don't make a lot of videos, but it's there, and sometimes I make videos.
What are your favorite fragrances of all time, and what about your mom?
Whew, my mom really loves Nina Ricci. She wears Nina Ricci a lot, and uh, Joy by Jean Patou, she really likes as well. Like the old formulation. Um, and for the most part, though, she wears Contradiction by Calvin Klein, which is one that I also enjoy, and also anything violet. Like she'll wear anything violet. So I've been trying to get her into Guerlain Insolent, which is their like flagship violet fragrance. But for me, James, that's a really tough question. I would have to say that one of my all-time favorite fragrances is I don't speak French. Baiser Volé by Cartier. That was really the very first like high-end perfume I was super into. There's one called Fox in the Flower Bed by Imaginary Authors, that I really like. It smells like prancing through a meadow in the Alps on a cool day with the sun shining. It just really kind of depends on my mood, honestly. Like, there are some fragrances that when I'm happy, I wear them. There are fragrances where, yeah, I actually have one over here next to me. It's called Bow Makers. by DS and Durga. It smells like you just stepped into like a violin studio, like a wood studio. So
Nice.
fragrance is incredible. Yeah.
What if you're just starting out and don't want to spend a lot of money on fragrance? Are there any really good cheap buys for people?
Yeah, certainly. One of the great things to do is to kind of, if you're getting your feet wet, I don't recommend it long term because everybody has their own angle, but watching some YouTube videos or going on some of the Facebook groups for fragrances. But there are, Fragrance Net is a really great place to go to look for good buys. They always have 37% off. Yeah, that's where you got yours, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
Zara
so
wanted my night. I have lost count of how many unsolicited compliments I've got on this.
yeah,
So thank you very much. And
you're welcome.
this Aqua de Parma here, a little bit
Yeah.
more woodsy, Arancia de Capri. I wanted to spoil myself with some of my gift cards for Christmas. So these two will last me a while, that's for sure.
That's a good one.
And
Where did you get the Aqua de Parma? Did you get that from Fragrance Net also?
actually, what I got that from Amazon. I had a gift card to use up, and it
Yeah,
wasn't too much more than it was on Fragrance Net. And
yeah.
I, bought, paid a little extra for it, and I was like, between these two and reserving them mostly for special occasions, they'll last me a while. So thank you very much. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
you're welcome. You really can't go wrong with Acqua di Parma. Like they are such a beautiful fragrance house. They're from Italy. Actually, my parents were just in Italy in December, and I wanted them to bring me something back that was really genuine from Italy. And there's so many Italian fragrance houses, but they brought me back Magnolia Infinita, which is really beautiful. And actually, I love magnolias. So I mean, I live in the South now, so I love magnolias, and they brought that back along with COVID. The perfume was the highlight for sure.
Oh man, well, every rose has its thorn.
Yeah, it's true. It's a good point, James.
That's great. Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you plan on do you plan on doing more videos on Professor Perfume in the near term or intermediate term, or what would
Yeah,
you
I
like to
probably
discuss?
will. It's I have a lot of irons in the fire right now. You know, I I'm finishing my PhD. I'm just getting ready to propose my dissertation, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And which is basically where you're like, okay, here's what I plan on doing. You know, here's my study. And then once that is over, I might have a little more time in the short term. Come here. Come here. No, she does. She just wants to sit on my monitor and carry on. Um, but so I've got that. I'm teaching 5 classes. I still see a healthy caseload of clients at my job. And so I try to find the time, but there are just so many times where I'm so tired and I just don't have the energy. But definitely the ideas are there. Like all of the ideas are there, and I have more than enough fragrances to make videos about. So I've been trying to kind of find time. But if you have any suggestions about things that you would like to see, I'm completely open to it.
Yeah, you've turned me into a big fragrance fan. So thank you very much, Danielle, and you've given me a perfect pivot to go to, because I was going to ask about your PhD,
Hmm.
your therapy work, and what you're doing in that realm. What's your dissertation going to be on?
Well, it is on the full long title basically. Here, I can read it to you. I've got it. It's always on my computer, James. It's never not on my computer. Um, the dissertation is always it's called Consensus on Best Practices in Neuroscience Informed Treatment of Combat Related Post Traumatic Stress in Military Veterans, a Delphi study of experts in the field of mental health. That
Wow,
is the title of my dissertation.
awesome. And what got you into working with veterans with PTSD?
Um, it was always kind of a passion for mine. So as you know, I have a master's degree in public administration that I focused in national security and defense policy. So it was always kind of there, you know, um, when I was much younger, um, probably this was probably 1991 or 92. I was on an airplane coming back from somewhere, and there were a bunch of service members on the airplane. And I remember saying to my mom, can I go and get their autographs? Like, even at that age, I just sort of like really had a high regard, held the military in a high regard. I was probably 8 or 9. And sorry. And so that just kind of evolved. My cousin Alex served in both the Persian Gulf and then again in Iraq. Um, so it's just always been kind of there for me. I'm not, we're not a military family. My parents didn't serve. I haven't served, obviously. I don't have any siblings, so there was nobody to serve there. It just is something that I really started to kind of appreciate. I think that we're a society that really puts a lot of emphasis and idolatry onto people who don't really control. Like, I don't know. This is my own personal opinion. This might be a little controversial, but um, why like idolize somebody who plays football when you can idolize somebody who's willing to lay down their life to go serve their country? Like, that's kind of how I've always viewed it. And so that became a thing. And then I determined that I really wanted to focus on this in my doctoral program, my degree being in counselor education and supervision, um, but really just counseling. And I knew that I wanted to come to Norfolk to be near the military because here in Norfolk we have every branch of the military. And so, unfortunately, that whole thing hasn't quite worked out the way that I planned or wanted it to, but I've made my own way,
Wow,
despite the fact.
that's wonderful. Now, in your now, there's a lot more emphasis on mental health and head injuries, both in football and in the military. Um, what have you discovered in your research and in your teaching?
Well, you'll have to read my dissertation. I mean, you can anyway. I'll give you a copy when it's done, but
Can't
I
wait.
haven't actually. So here's the thing. Modern mental health work puts a lot of emphasis on, and maybe you've even heard of this, cognitive behavioral therapy. Um, it's an evidence-based form of therapy that works for a lot of things. But veterans report 2/3 of veterans who undergo CBT after their service are not really getting benefits from it. Um, so my research was inspired by the fact that I'm a really big fan of brain-based interventions. So EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, um, prolonged exposure therapy, um, and the neuro-informed version of CBT, um, as well as the neuro-informed version. This is a breezy, by the way. Um,
Hi, Breezy.
it's okay. Um, so
Oh, how
she'll go.
beautiful.
Thank you. We'll talk about her again later if you want. But
Yeah, well,
like
she's on the topic of discussion, but we'll
she
keep
is, yeah,
going.
she's
We'll keep going with your great work on behalf of vets. Keep
yeah. Well,
going.
I just didn't want her to be sitting there like carrying on the whole time, so I brought her down here. But yeah, I mean, so there's a lot to be done in terms of there are a lot of initiatives now that were started by both um, the Trump and Biden administrations to ensure better mental health care for veterans. Um, and I'm excited about those, but at the same time, there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of how we approach veterans. And I think a lot of times people look at somebody and say, "Oh, like okay, you have a grievous physical injury. Like I can see evidence of your injury." Um, but people can't see post-traumatic stress. Um, so it's a silent injury. Um, it's one that you could be standing next to somebody who has PTS and not know about it. Um, and you may have heard that I said PTS.
I
I'm a
noticed
really
that.
yeah. I'm not a big fan of calling it a disorder. Like I'm not a big fan of pathologizing it. It's there's a big movement actually right now to call it PTS because post traumatic stress disorder. Um, it's not really a disorder. It's something that happens as a result of exposure to a certain set of conditions, whether it's military or otherwise. Um, and so I don't like to think of somebody as disordered. simply because of something that they experienced. Um, so it's simply a condition, post-traumatic stress. So you'll hear a lot of people in the profession talk about dropping the D, um, which is something that I really advocate for on a regular basis.
Well, yeah, I just heard about EMDR, prolonged exposure, and neuro-based thinking. How can that help people with PTS, or how has it helped in your experience?
Well, and that'll be something that I hope to explore a little more deeply in my research study in my dissertation. Ultimately, I'm gaining the insight of experts who work in those modalities to see how they feel these are the efficacy of those particular interventions are when treating PTS. But overall, EMDR is really useful because it does a lot of bilateral stimulation of the brain. It tries to engage. So a lot of times trauma can interrupt the functioning of your brain. Like it can interrupt the cross hemisphere functioning and communication of your brain. So that's really what EMDR does. It helps to kind of you'll see a lot of like movement oriented stuff and tapping. Like a lot of times they'll suggest like a butterfly tapping thing, like where you kind of butterflies right everywhere, um, and just kind of like so it's much deeper than that. But really, what it comes down to is just helping your brain sort of re-engage. So the part between the hemispheres of your brain is called your corpus callosum, and just kind of helping to sort of re-engage the cross hemispheric interaction of your brain hemisphere so that there is better functioning and prolonged exposure is great. I'm actually I'm really into PE. It's great. It's a good way to kind of um, help people uh, get exposed to something that caused them a traumatic response, but very slowly. And it's very important that there's good rapport between the therapist um, and the client. But I think neuro is the future of counseling. I really do. Like I'm a big fan of neuro. I think that how can we understand emotions if we don't understand where emotions come from? Um,
Yeah, I try to stay on top of my mental health as much as I can as well. So
Good.
I'd be fascinated in finding more about the especially the neural part. Yeah, as
Yeah,
my life
I
progresses.
I think, James, I think that people go to their doctor every year. Um, People find it important to go see their doctor every 6 months or every year or whatever. You go to the dentist for a cleaning a couple times a year. Yet people are so on board with forgetting about their mental health and or ignoring it. And so for me, a lot of what I do in my job is reminding people that, even if everything feels okay, it's still totally acceptable to have somebody to talk to, somebody to kind of, whether you're doing something deep like neuro because you have PTS, or, whether you just are stressed out about your job. There's always room for people in therapy, always.
That's wonderful. Now you said you have a caseload of current patients. What's that experience been like for you?
I love my clinical work. I'm getting so a lot of the reasons why counselors might pursue a PhD is so that we can teach. And it's a very diverse career field. So if anyone's thinking about it, I would recommend it highly, if it's something that you enjoy. But I like working with my clients a lot. I have several clients I've built really good relationships with, who I see regularly, who I have fantastic rapport with, and they have really become, they trust me. I love seeing them and helping them. Um, but it's not without its I don't want to say problems. It's not without its stressors, James. Like it's hard to hear people's problems day in and day out. Like it's a burden I take on willingly because I love my job, but it's still a challenge to hear people's sadness and disappointments and things on a daily basis. So that's why I like to kind of supplement that with the teaching, because the teaching is, fun for me, and it's, you kind of see the brighter side of things. But I will always be a practitioner. I'll always be somebody who practices first and foremost.
That's wonderful. What kind of classes are you teaching these days?
So I'm teaching pretty much the same class all the time. Which is fine with me because it's become something that I'm good at, even though I wasn't good at it in my own program when I took the class myself. But I'm teaching assessment of mental and emotional disorders in children and adolescents. So I teach students who are really focusing on um, that
Oh
on
wow.
work on working with children and adolescents. So I teach them proper assessment methods, how to use those methods, how to um, secure access to them, how to utilize them. So a lot of times people, have you ever taken, I don't mean to pry, but have you ever taken a psychological assessment of any kind?
I've taken a few over my time.
Okay. So
Not recently.
that it's really important. Context is really important. So like if somebody were just to look at an assessment, like one of the most famous assessments is like the PC, like, well, okay, the PHQ-9, right? You sometimes take it when you go to the doctor's office, or looking more seriously into something like the Beck Depression Inventory. If you're just taking the Beck Depression Inventory and you don't know anything about the context of the client's life, you can make a really big mistake. So what I do is I basically teach them how to combine a bunch of different kinds of assessment methods like observation and the actual, paper and pen formal assessments to make a good and educated decision on what's going on with their client. So that's
Wow.
been my class primarily, but I've also taught marriage and family therapy. I've taught human growth and development. Um, so I've taught a few different classes, but I seem to be settling in as the assessment professor at this point.
Well, that's good to know about all just mixing, observing and interviewing people and doing a bunch of for lack of a better word, tried and true assessments so that way you can get a complete picture of how best to individually tailor their mental health care. And then
Yeah.
I'm definitely I'm definitely impressed. Now I know our your sweet darling Breezy has been coming in and out. How did you get her? What kind of bird is she? Is she?
She is a Quaker parrot. If you can see, she's got ombre, so she's like blue and gray and white. Her grandfather named her Breezy, my dad, because of her air colors. She's like air related colors, and so when I was younger, one of my very first pets, in fact, the pet that I had first was a parakeet. Um, and Um, so I had parakeets growing up. I've always gravitated towards birds. Um, I've had probably at least five parakeets growing up. And then I've always loved birds. I think they're fascinating. Like a lot of people are afraid of birds, right? Which I try to understand, but I have a hard time understanding it because they're just really, you know, personable, like engaging pets, right? Um, but in 2020, which was a hard year for a lot of people, everyone pretty much. We lost our Molly, our dog Molly, um, and a lot of stuff was going on for me at school. And my dad had a really serious surgery that had kind of an unexpectedly negative outcome at the time. He's fine now, but um, a lot of stuff was happening, and I found myself really sinking into a place of serious depression. Um, and I have no problem admitting that. Like I was just really, I was in a really rough place. And I thought to myself, like, okay, so I need something to bring me out of this. And I noticed that I was watching a lot of bird videos online again, and I had started focusing on Quaker parrots because they're funny. Um, they're really engaging, they're cuddly, they're excellent talkers, they're very social. And so I went to a pet store here that kind of like a couture pet store, where they have a lot of different types of birds, from finches to macaws, which are like pirate parrots. Um, and I found a Quaker that I really liked, and but it was too young to take home. And I thought, you know what, I'll wait and come back in a few days and see if my mind has changed at all, because it's a big investment. It really is. They require a largish cage. They require a lot of time and energy, and so I came back a few days later, and I couldn't remember which one it was that I had bonded with. Oh, look at that leap that she just took, that flying leap.
Yes.
Um, and so I went back a few days later, James, and I was hanging out near a pen with a bunch of other blue Quakers, and this little fuzz nugget came up to me, and she couldn't even stand yet. She couldn't perch. She was so young. Um, you know, birds can't when they're very young, they can't perch. Like, so they need to be taught how to perch. Like, so she was so little that she couldn't even perch yet. And I was like, there's something about this bird. There's something about this bird. She sat on my shoulder and she immediately fell asleep, which is always a good sign. It means they're comfortable. And um, so I said, this is the one. I put her on layaway, which is what you do when you first get a bird who's very young, who can't come home yet. So I put her on layaway. She still needed to be hand fed for a few more weeks, which is
Wow.
fine, because my dad was having his, he was going through his stuff. And so I kept visiting her when I could. We bonded. And then on August 19th, 2020, I took her home with me. Um, I brought her back to my apartment, and the rest is history. And we're best buddies. We really are. Like, I try to take her everywhere. Like, when the weather is warm, she comes everywhere with me. Um, People will say to me, um, "Where's the bird?" if I go there without her. Like, she's kind of a local celebrity, honestly. So and she has her own Instagram page. It's called The Adventures of Breezy Bird. Um, which I'm not always the best at keeping up, like most of my other social media, but she's really cool. And my parents were like, don't even think about bringing her home. We don't want her here. And now my parents will call me on the phone and ask how she is. So
Oh, how sweet. Yeah,
yeah,
now
so
you
she's
mentioned yeah, you mentioned you had a few you had dogs over the years. So I know you have I know sadly, Molly passed away and you have Lila.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
Lila just turned 14.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
Neff
I know.
turned 16 on Halloween.
Really?
Yeah.
Halloween Black Cat, I love it.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I mean, and she looks like she's doing great still.
Yeah, I mean, she had seizures a few years ago, but we got to the bottom of it. It turns out it's arrhythmia, so she hasn't had any episodes since she was properly diagnosed, and she's been pretty vibrant ever since then.
Good. I mean, it looks like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I stay on top of her, give her the best food. So I was chasing shadows and pouncing on them. She'll hop on, hop around a bunch of stuff, and it's hard. Sometimes I have a hard time realizing she's 16.
Yeah. It's interesting though, like with Lila, um, if I go home and I like haven't seen her for a few weeks or whatever, like I can really tell that she's aging. Like, and it really kills me because I'm like mentally trying to prepare myself for the inevitability of her not being here anymore. Um, but I'm also trying to balance that with enjoying every moment I have with her. Like, loving her and, hanging out with her. And so I actually just sent my parents a thing about a brace you can get because she has hip arthritis.
Oh no!
Um, you can get a brace that just kind of fits over her rump and like supports her legs, because sometimes she'll try to get up and her legs will like slide out from underneath her. And um, so I don't know. She's otherwise she seems to be in really good health, but when your dog starts to reach 14, you're like, okay, I guess this is something that I need to think about. And um, so but we've always been a really animal oriented family. Like, we've always had animals. So it's just kind of a thing for us. So
I just learned
um,
you were raising butterflies, you and your family?
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I don't even know how it started actually. A couple of years ago on my balcony, um, in the middle of the city in Norfolk, Virginia, I had an herb garden. Um, I had parsley out there, and I went out there one morning and saw my healthy, vibrant parsley plant totally decimated, and I saw like what looked like caterpillars on them. And I was like flicking, I still feel so bad about this. I was like flicking them off because I was like, get off of my parsley. Like, I want my parsley. It turns out those were swallowtail butterfly caterpillars. Um, in that same year, my parents had started noticing monarch butterfly caterpillars in their garden. And so they started this process where you get these, containers and everything, and you put them in there, and then they have the opportunity to grow and develop safely. And so, yeah, so we've done that for 2 years now, where we bring in the caterpillar eggs and some, caterpillar, like, or the monarch butterfly eggs and some caterpillars, and then we raise them from like eggs to full-blown caterpillars. It's been a really cool experience. Butterflies have a lot of lessons to teach us, James. Um,
Transformation, obviously.
yes.
What are the
Um,
lessons have they taught you? Like,
Perseverance in the face of challenges. I mean, butterflies, think about it. So butterflies, there are several generations every year of butterflies, and the final one is the one that travels to Mexico. I mean, these tiny little creatures with itty bitty, like thin wings make it from Virginia down to Mexico somehow. They persevere despite adversity. Only 2% of butterflies that eclose, which is when they come out of their chrysalis and like emerge. Only 2% of caterpillars in the wild actually survive.
wow,
So last year we probably released maybe around 100, I feel like maybe, which is a big deal because the more you can cultivate them naturally but safely, the more there are out there, and then they can reproduce, and then like you have more butterflies because butterflies monarchs are endangered. So, um, I mean, they're think of it this way, right? It starts off with a tiny little egg on a leaf somewhere on a plant, and then it hatches, becomes a tiny little caterpillar, and then there are 5 stages of growth for a caterpillar. They're called instars. So there's like the fifth instar is usually when they like wrap themselves into a chrysalis, which is it's a solid thing. It's green, it has like these little gold dots on it. um and then they hang out in there for 2 weeks, and during that time they completely dissolve themselves and regrow. Like, they go in there as a caterpillar and they literally dissolve themselves with a chemical or whatever that's in their own body. And then they come out this gorgeous butterfly like 2 weeks later. Um, if that's not a symbol of hope and resilience and growth, I don't know what is. So um, I've taken a lot of meaning from our work with caterpillar or with butterflies the last 2 years. And we're going to do it again this year, but we're already planning on doing it a little differently because we had some illnesses in our habitats last year. So this year we're
oh
only
no,
going to take in. So this year we're only going to take in eggs, and let them grow, and then we're going to release them all together. Because last year and the year before, what we did is we took in caterpillars at various stages of development that we'd find on milkweed or whatever. Um, and sometimes you introduce illnesses to your habitats, and then the other caterpillars get sick, and it's not good. So this year my parents are actually redoing their entire garden too, so that they can have a big milkweed habitat. So it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it.
wow, that's wonderful. I know one time I went to Magic Wings out in Western Massachusetts. It's so calming. I've been with my former wife Melanie, with my best friend Eric Bernstein, and I met my friend Lucia there.
Mhm.
It's like one of the calmest places to ever be in. I mean, I'm a type A kid from Long Island. I'm very prone to get really stressed about stuff, but just being there, it's so calming. just having them just land on you.
Mhm.
You don't pursue them. They want to go on your arm or your shoulder, they'll do it.
Yeah.
It just it's I reminds me to take another trip out that way.
Yeah, you should. I mean, I love butterflies. So is it the place that you were talking about? Is it just like a big cat or a big butterfly habitat?
Yeah, yeah. It's just it's a place where people can go see butterflies, walk through the gardens,
Sounds
have them land
incredible.
on them. You can feed them. It's really common to be around.
I want to go. That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. If I ever get up that way again, I'll definitely take a trip there with you.
Awesome. Yeah, put me in. Yeah, you said you're into Eagles, the actual Eagles, not the NFC champion Eagles.
Yeah, I don't care about football really. But I love Eagles. Yeah, I've been watching the nests for a few years now. So there are several really big eagle nests, bald eagle nests that have cameras on them. Um, and people get really attached to them. Like, the matriarch and the patriarch, and you watch the babies grow, and um, it's nature. So sometimes you see stuff you'd rather not, like a squirrel carcass or whatever. Like, I mean, you see stuff that you'd rather not, but it's nature. And one of the biggest um issues right now in the world of eagle watching is the disappearance of the matriarch from the Southwest Florida um, nest, Harriet. She's been around for 12 years or something. And maybe like 2 weeks ago, she started vocalizing at a couple of intruders and she took off after them and she hasn't been seen since. So,
Oh,
yeah. So for people who've been watching Harriet for a long time, it's been really upsetting. And because she had a partner, Ozzy, Ozzy and
yes,
Harriet.
match.
Um, and Ozzy was chased off, we think killed by the male eagle who's now at the nest, M15. It's nature, right? And you see a lot of people trying to anthropomorphize it, like, oh, he loved her so much he had to chase away. No, it has nothing to do with that. Like for eagles, it's all about territory and survival, and you know, it's nature. Um, so M15, who is still a pretty young eagle, he's only, I think, fathered a few clutches of eaglets, or I think you call it a clutch, yeah. He is holding down the fort really well. Like intruder eagles keep coming up to the nest, mostly females trying to move in, possibly even the female eagle who chased away Harriet to try to get to the nest. Um, None of them have been aggressive towards the babies, which is good because E21 and E22 are the current eaglets, and they were both born, I think, in December. Um, but yeah, it's this big, long, dramatic thing, right? Like, people know them by their names, they know the babies. Like, um, it's been. I recommend to anybody who's into birds or raptors because they're raptors. To kind of look at those eagle cams. Like there's the Southwest Florida Eagle Cam, there's the Northeast Florida Eagle Cam, there's one at Big Bear. They're all over the place. All you have to do is go on Google and search for eagle cams, and you can see a whole bunch of them. But I enjoy it. I'll like lie on my couch at night and just watch the eagles. Like,
Oh my gosh, wow. I
yeah.
want to name one of the Eagles Cygnus X1 after one of my favorite Rush songs.
Oh yeah. Well, maybe you
Yeah,
should suggest
like
that to them, James.
M15, yeah, Cygnus X1, 2112.
Yeah, do it. Write to them and
Yeah.
say, here's what I think. Yeah, the nomenclature, unfortunately, or like the naming convention for eagles is kind of boring. Because they used to give them specific names, but now it's like there's so many that it's just impossible to sort of keep all of them, you know, like usually the matriarch and the patriarch have names. Um, the the one in Washington, D.C. I think her name is Flotus, First Lady of the United States, and his
Yes.
name is like Mr. President. Um, but Then there's one down in New Orleans. I think her name is Jackie or something, and I can't remember what his name is, but like it's a really cool thing. I highly recommend to anybody that you look into the eagle cams. Like watching I mean, yeah, you see some stuff you'd rather not sometimes, but I've gotten a lot of satisfaction out of watching them. It's kind of, and baby eagles are just the coolest little things. Like they need to be fed constantly, and they always look like they have clown shoes because like they just can't walk. Like their feet are so big. But yeah, that's just turned into one of my interests several years ago, and I've been watching. I've watched several like nests of eaglets mature and fly away, and it's always kind of fun but bittersweet because you get attached to watching them. So yeah,
Wow,
that's just one
good
of,
stuff.
yep.
Any other animals or nature you're into?
Um, Not really these days. When we lived in New Hampshire, we were really big into the Bears. Um, Not the football team, the actual Bears, right? And we had wild turkeys in our yard that we used to watch.
Wild
I
turkey's
actually
not the bourbon.
not the bourbon, yeah, just the actual turkeys. So, but I love elephants, and whales too. Elephants and whales. Actually, something very concerning has been happening lately here in Virginia. We've had like two humpback whales dead near Virginia Beach in the last couple of weeks. And the other day, a right whale, which are they're endangered, um, washed up dead on the shore, like just like right on the actual beach. Um, so that's been upsetting for a lot of people. The fact that the whales are, and they attributed it, to a lot of the right whale that washed ashore the other day. They found like deep cuts on him from a vessel, like, and this is a naval area. There's a lot of business, like we're the largest naval base in the world, Norfolk. So there are always Navy boats around, and also it's a really big shipping port as well. So there are like lots of like tugboats and what do you call them? Whatever the help me out, James. Like a lot of like the boats that freighters or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so there are plenty of places for a whale to get injured around here. But when the weather is nice, I like to go out whale watching here, and um, there are a lot of dolphins here, a lot of sea turtles. So it's one of the benefits of living in this area. A lot of marine life. I mean, I love all animals, really. So you can, except for cockroaches.
So no, yeah. Now you mentioned you live in Norfolk. You've traveled quite a bit over the years, like to Ohio, to New Hampshire. You spent the last set of years in Norfolk, and I got to visit you in Norfolk and Virginia Beach, and did a
Yeah.
lot of fun stuff while I was there. What do you like best about the area you're living in now?
Um, I mean, hopefully you'll come back. I noticed you're going to be in DC, but that's a bit of a haul to come down here on a DC trip. But um, I like living here because there really is a lot of stuff to do. Like Norfolk itself, is kind of a high crime area, like a lot of cities, right? But there are constantly festivals and farmers markets and concerts, and I live downtown, so there's a hockey arena right here where like a minor league hockey team plays. You can't
Nice.
complain. I just went to a game a couple of weeks ago. There are tons of museums, lots of really great concerts. The water is great. I love being near
I
the
loved it.
water.
That
Um,
big Poseidon statue.
yeah, yeah. I was actually going to go over there and take a picture of that earlier. I'm going to an event later on today where there are going to be a bunch of foster dogs. It's at a brewery. Again, I don't really drink, so it doesn't really. I'm going for the dogs. But there are a bunch of foster dogs and looking for homes, and you can like give the dogs kisses and stuff. Like it's a post Valentine's Day thing for the doggies. But yeah, it's gonna be down by the beach. I love going to the water. Like the water is so cathartic for me. Even though I don't actually go into it because I hate waves, but being near the water is cleansing for me. So,
I
uh,
wholeheartedly agree.
mhm,
Wholeheartedly. I love
yeah.
swimming lakes.
Hmm.
Just swimming in the water. It gives a calming effect on mind. It's like I'm being, send messages to just kind of process what's going on in my mind or to just to calm down. And the
Yeah.
beach just love going to the water, just love walking on the sand, love the
Yeah.
salty air. It is very calming and peaceful. I love it.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to see some of the best of Virginia Beach while you were here, and I know we took you to Ocean View Fishing Pier, which is one of my favorite places to
Oh,
go.
love that.
Just high above the water and watching the sunset and everything. And but yeah, there's so much stuff to do around here. You can take a quick day trip down to the Outer Banks, like of North Carolina. You can go up the Eastern Shore and go see the ponies at Chincoteague, which I still haven't done, but that's like where all the wild ponies are.
Yes,
Um,
wild horses
so
couldn't drag me away.
yeah, right. uh, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do around here. It's not terrible. I'm having to make some decisions here in my life probably soon about where I end up, and um, you know, makes me wonder a little bit if I haven't been dragging out my PhD because I didn't want to have to make decisions about the next step. Um, but I don't know. I could work remotely and live here. Or I could leave and go somewhere else. Like, I don't know. But I do like it here. I don't mind living here. And my parents live in Williamsburg, an hour away, right in the middle of historic everything. So
Oh,
it,
nice.
yeah. So there's no shortage of things to do here. You can take a quick drive to the mountains. So Virginia really is a beautiful state.
Yeah, I know
It
in
is.
your section of town, I like the USS Wisconsin. I like the MacArthur Museum. I love that the places you took me, and I love getting to meet you. Love getting to meet you, Darrell and Anthony, and it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, you'll
I
have to come back for sure.
I definitely have compelling reasons to do so. And
Yeah.
the central part of Virginia, I love the presidential mansions. Like, as my marriage was ending, I had what I call my Eat, Love, Pray, Love presidential mansions tour with my friend Ray. And I also love a lot of the wineries in Virginia as well.
Yeah, the Trump winery and like I haven't been there yet, but I'm
I've been to
planning.
that one. I've been to Jefferson nearby, if we're talking presidents.
Mhm.
That has one of the best red wines I've ever had. It's a Meritage. It's
Mm.
sterling. It's also in Charlottesville
Uh,
um, as well. So that's wonderful. I know you're big into skating and the Mets. And any other sports you're into, or is it
I
other
like
than skating and
hockey.
baseball? Yeah, I do too. I'm
Yeah, you're a
seeing
Rangers,
Rangers
diehard
captains.
Rangers fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was always an Islanders fan. Um, he grew up, in Queens. He lived in Flushing. Um,
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
yeah, so he was
Usually, yeah,
always,
Flushing. Yeah, usually, once you get to the Queens line, there that's the Rangers Islanders dividing line. My cousins
yeah,
from Astoria got to me when I was a kid.
yeah,
I although I grew up in the island, and I like both teams, but I've been a fierce as well Rangers fan even well after I moved to New England, and well after they missed the playoffs for 7 years while being a dumping ground for everybody else's bad salaries. I maintained my loyalty, and I've seen games at MSG, at TD Garden, and at I even did the Winter Classic in 0 degree weather at City Field
yeah.
one
I
year.
remember that.
So that's cool. How did you get into skating, and how did you get into baseball and hockey?
Well, I used to figure skate a lot when I was younger. Um, and so after starting that, I just really became an avid watcher of it. I don't really watch it so much anymore. I'm having a really hard time with the fact that figure skating is so corrupt. Um, like, it didn't feel like it was this corrupt back in the day, but I think it was. And I was just kind of looking at it with rose-colored glasses on. But, um, skating for me was always more of an artistic pursuit, like kind of ballet on ice. Excuse me. And nowadays it's more like who's doing quadruples and quintuples and it's more like gymnastics on ice rather than ballet on ice. So I've been kind of struggling a little bit with that transition away from what I used to love about the sport to what it's become, and also the fact that there's just so much like mistreatment of the athletes, um and so much like corruption in the judging system. I mean, figure skating has revamped judging system several times over the course of the years, and it's still corrupt. I don't know why I have my beliefs that it all comes from Russia, but that's my own personal opinion.
Russia, Russia, Russia.
Russia, Russia, Russia. Um, so I feel like, yeah, most of the time the corruption is coming from Russia. They really control the politics of figure skating. But yeah, I mean, I really don't know much of what's going on in skating these days. Like, I prefer to go back and sort of remember the glory days of skating. So,
Gotcha.
the 90s, were my like favorite era in skating. I'll watch it. Like, I think we just had Skate America or something, and I'll probably go back and watch it. Um, but I don't know. It's becoming like a bunch of 15-year-olds who do really big jumps. And it's like, if you go look at Michelle Kwan, for example, or Christy Yamaguchi, or like any of the older skaters, it was artistry, you know? It was artistry, and it was like, okay, you weren't thinking about the jumps. I mean, you were, but you were primarily focused on, okay, the beauty of the skating. And now it's just like jump, couple of steps, jump, couple of steps, jumps, and um so that's been a little bit of a reality check for me that the sport that I love has, changed irreparably. So, um, yeah, that's what I have to say about skating. But I was born a Mets fan. I mean, I was born into Metsdom. So regarding the baseball, I mean, my dad used to see them play before when they were at the Polo Grounds. Um, so he saw them before they were even in Shea. Um,
Oh wow, that's awesome. Then the '69 Mets and the
yeah,
'86 Mets. Yeah, they had
yes,
the
my dad.
teamwork to make the dream work.
I'm pretty sure my dad was in one of the first games ever played in Shea. Um, he has seen a lot of really cool things in Mets history. And then for a long time he wasn't really into baseball. And then I in the 90s for a few years was a really diehard Mariners fan because we were going to Seattle a lot on vacation. So I went to the Kingdom and saw them play there, and um which the Kingdom is no more. It's now like Safeco Field or something. But um, I've always really liked baseball. Um, it just happens that for a few years I was a Mariners fan, but now, I feel like as Mets fans, James, and you've probably experienced this as well. Um, every year we say to ourselves and to everybody else around us who will listen, maybe this is the year. Maybe this is the year. I don't know. It seems like I mean, we lost DeGrom, but DeGrom is already experiencing some physical injury issues at his new
Yeah,
team. So I don't know. Maybe it wasn't such a big loss to get rid of DeGrom. Um, but we'll see. I mean, we've got some really great new names on the roster this year. We've got what's his face, Verlander.
Verlander. Yeah, that's a good replacement for Degrom.
Yeah, yeah, and he's probably like he's not as accident and injury prone as DeGrom is. So, I think that's been a really big problem for the team the last few years is we take on a lot of like contracts for people who are experiencing repeated injuries and then they end up not even playing. And it's just like, stop. She's
Yeah, I know we had that. We had that recent player that I'm blanking on his name, but the Giants didn't want to sign him because of
oh,
his injury
Correa.
history. Yeah, and then the Mets decided against signing him for the same reason,
Yeah, good
and
for them.
walked away. And what do you think, Uncle Steve?
I like him. I worry sometimes that he's still being a little handcuffed by the front office. As long as Sandy Alderson is around, I worry because Sandy Alderson is like a relic of the Wilpons, and the Wilpons really poorly. I mean, obviously the Wilpons were using the Mets to recover financially from their issues with Bernie Madoff.
My
But like
friend Sarah calls them the Will Ponzi's.
Wilponsies, I love that.
Yes,
That's fantastic. I mean, so yeah, that's my only issue with the Sandy Alderson is I'm like, okay, well, he's still like a holdover from, when the Mets were just being badly mismanaged or badly owned. Um, but I don't know. I do have hope for this year. I know I say this every year. Last year was so hopeful. Like
yeah,
I
101 wins.
Yeah,
101
and
wins
then
and then losing to San Diego in that mini playoff series.
oh my God, yeah. Well, they shouldn't have even been like in the wild card position. They should have been like they should have won the division like
Yeah,
handily.
they got swept by Atlanta a few times.
Yeah. And that's the thing with the Mets is like, they'll do that. They'll do really well and then they'll just tank. And it's like, what happens to you guys? Like, what happens to the team that all of a sudden they just start tanking like precipitously? Like, what happens? I don't know if they get cocky and they let off the gas or something happens, they lose a series and they just completely lose hope and then they start to like fall apart. I don't know. But I guess, James, as loyal Mets fans, we can do what we do every year and say maybe this year.
Yeah, we got the teamwork to make the dream work, as the '86 Mets song says.
Yeah. Well, and pitchers and catchers just reported this past week. So spring training is about to get underway and here probably in the next little bit. And so um that's exciting for me. I always really look forward to spring training.
I know up in New England, the Sox fans, it's like an auspicious day when pitchers and catchers report, or when the giant truck gets shipped down from Fenway to Fort Myers.
Mhm.
It's an auspicious day up here. It's like when
Yeah.
football season's over and, it's not the playoffs for basketball or hockey yet.
Yeah. Yeah. You just kind of, I don't know. So baseball season is though one of my favorite times of year for sure. I don't really, my dad watches a lot of hockey. It's fun. He became a really big Columbus Blue Jackets fan because we were at like their first game ever when they first became an NHL franchise. Um, I'm sorry, we have like my allergies are so bad because it was like 75 the other day and now it's in the 40s again.
Oh
So
man, I feel your pain. I've been battling allergies all winter with all this
yeah.
heat getting kicked up.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
know. Like,
I hope you
mm.
feel better in that regard. And
Oh, it's fine. I just want to explain why my voice is a little bit fuzzy at times because yeah, it was in the 70s for several days and then just like last night, okay, 40s. But yeah, my dad isn't a Blue Jackets fan. I guess if I were gonna watch hockey, I'd be a Blue Jackets fan also, but it's hockey is weird for me because it's so fast. It like gives
yeah,
me whiplash. Like I'd much prefer to see hockey in person, which I do sometimes. And but baseball, and we have a AAA team here in Norfolk too. Next time you visit, I'll take you to a game. But
awesome.
we have the AAA team here for the Baltimore Orioles, but it used to be the AAA team for the Mets.
Tidewaters, the Tidewater
Yeah,
Tides. I
yeah, it
remember
was.
that. I remember like
Yeah,
in the '80s, like
yeah.
we're sending him to
Recently.
Tidewater.
Hmm?
That was like, I remember hearing on like, when I'm studying the Mets and he's, hey, we're sending this guy to Tidewater.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
bringing this guy up from Tidewater.
yeah. I love how you say it, Tidewater. I love. Yeah, and, if you go to Harbor Park, which is the stadium, it's like less than a mile from my apartment. Um, you see they still really honor the history that they had as the Mets AAA team, and oh my gosh, though I would be so happy if they were active. I'm sorry, I was cleaning up a poop. It's the story of my life. I wish that they had been here if they were still the Mets farm team, but um, that's just kind of my timing in life. But can you imagine getting to see all of the talent before it went up to the big club? Oh, so that would have been so cool.
Yeah, that
He's
was great. I actually went to a Brooklyn Cyclones game last year with my friend Sarah.
Did
They're the
you?
single A they're the single A Mets affiliate, and it was like
Yeah.
the Seinfeld night that she was fixing to go to. And like she did a little dance on the field after the game. I think we got to meet Emily Changstein from one of the episodes,
Oh, cool.
and and the game itself was pretty good. They had like a pitch clock. The game ran about maybe 2 hours.
Really
And then we ended up walking around Coney Island afterward. And then there was actually
nice.
a brewery at the bottom of the stadium
Hmm.
that they my favorite Pilsner of all time, Mermaid Pilsner, was made there, Coney Island Brewing.
Hmm.
And it was a lot of fun. I want to go to City Field for an actual Mets game. I went to see the Mets when they played the Sox at Fenway in 18. I've been to Camden Yards, I've been to Toronto, Trying to think of where else. Yeah, Coors Field to see the Rockies with my friends Eddie and Carrie.
Mhm.
It so I've kind of been bouncing around to various baseball, football, and hockey stadiums over the years.
Yeah, actually, you just reminded me. My dad is turning 75 this year in April. And I had always said I'm going to take you to City Field for a game for your 75th birthday. It's right around the time that I'll probably be defending my dissertation, maybe a little bit after, but you just reminded me that I need to look. But I require his collaboration because he can fly for free since he's an airline retiree. So thank you for reminding me. I'm thinking maybe we go for like a day game or something. Uh,
Oh yeah,
Turn around and come back in the evening or something. That's the way to do it, I think. But yeah, I've always wanted to go to City Field also. Um, I haven't been there yet, so that's definitely on my bucket list as well.
yeah. Now, one of New England interests. You're big into Polar Seltzer.
Yeah,
I know, like I brought down a stash when I saw you last time.
yes,
And they
it
got
was
all
very
these like
good.
yeah, really unique flavors these days. And I'm big into some seltzer waters, them and a few others like LaCroix and Saratoga, especially. Like,
Yeah.
how'd you get it? How'd you get into Polar?
Well, it's when I was living in New Hampshire, and I what I really love is so my favorite flavor of all time is their orange dry. I'll drink it as diet or regular. It's probably better as diet, obviously, but I think I was at Christmas Tree Shop, which we actually have a Christmas tree shop here, and it's in Richmond though. So
Wait,
sometimes
what?
when I'm in
Wow.
Richmond, yeah, because I used to love going to the Christmas tree shops all the time, like when I lived there. Um, And so we discovered there's one in Richmond. So sometimes when we're in Richmond, we'll go there. But um sometimes they have it there, but there's also a Wegmans here too.
Nice.
And Wegmans has Polar. So that's been kind of cool because when I lived in Ohio, there really wasn't anywhere that had it, but there was a Christmas tree shop, a random Christmas tree shop in Dayton. And on the rare occasion that I had to go to Dayton when I was in grad school there, but at a different campus, I used to go there. I remember one time I was in Dayton, I stocked up on orange dry. Like I had a whole trunk full of it. And when I actually moved from New Hampshire to Ohio, I brought with me like pieces of diet orange dry. Now I don't have to do that because Wegmans has it. But
Nice.
yeah, I love the flavors. It's fun to mix with like a fruit juice or something, or just to drink plain or whatever. But yeah, I agree. They're really good at coming up with those fun flavors like the unicorn and the mermaid and like all this other stuff. So um yeah, I enjoy being in a place where once again there is a store that has Polar. And it was really nice of you to bring it to me. I actually split it with my mom. My mom had some of what you brought
Oh, how
too.
sweet.
Um
Yeah.
so
How'd you like the Arctic Chill, the hard seltzer? They have a
oh good,
collaboration
yeah.
with Harpoon Brewing up here, and I really like it myself.
Yeah, it was really good. I don't drink very much, but when I do, I like to have a little bit of like I enjoy a seltzer, like a hard seltzer. Because I get migraines, so I got to
Oh
be
man.
careful around alcohol. But yeah, it was really good. It reminded me, to um this past year, this past Halloween, um, Shipyard Pumpkinhead. You know how they have the shipyard.
Yes.
They had actually a seltzer, a hard seltzer this past year too, a Pumpkinhead version of like a seltzer version of Pumpkinhead. And so I bought some of
Nice.
that and it's really good too. So yeah, the hard seltzers are good these days. They're a fun thing to do. So
Yeah, there's a few brewers in here that do hard seltzers, and I like to try them. And I know Wachusett's got a really good one. There's another one, I think Flying Dreams. It has a whole bunch of unique flavors. It's really neat.
mm,
It's nice to drink when you have when you need a change of pace.
for
Now, what were your
sure.
favorite parts of living in Ohio, living in New Hampshire? You mentioned some things about Virginia, and yeah, are there any other places you might consider moving?
Um, uh, I'll always have fond memories of Ohio, and part of me always kind of fantasizes about going back there. Um, I don't think I will though, but it was really the first place after all the moves. So I was born in New York, as you probably know. And then I lived in New Jersey, North Carolina, New Mexico, Ohio, New Hampshire, Ohio again, and then Virginia. So I've been around. Um, Ohio was great. There was a lot of stuff to do there. A lot of my friends are there. Although I've made some good friends here too, which is good. Um, but New Hampshire was rough for me. If I had lived like in Manchester or something, it would have been totally different. But living in New Hampshire for me was probably one of the most isolating experiences of my life.
Wow.
Um, you know, we were up in the mountains. We didn't know anybody. Um, it was rough. Like I didn't really have any friends. There weren't really any good career prospects. Although it can be argued that I ended up where I am because of my time in New Hampshire. So I'll always be grateful for that. I was substitute teaching in New Hampshire out of necessity. Um,
Wow.
I wanted to have a job that wasn't just like working in a hotel or a gift shop, um, which is what a lot of the jobs are in the White Mountains, a hotel or a gift shop. And I started subbing and I found that I really had a thing for talking to the kids and helping them with their problems. And so here we are. So, you know, I'm a really big fan, James, of like finding the golden thread. Like it may have seemed like a rough experience at the time, but what did it teach me that was positive? Or how did it lead me to my most genuine path and my most genuine experience? And so my time in New Hampshire, I think, is directly related to me becoming a therapist. And I'll always be grateful for that. And it's nice because now I can look back on it and be like, okay, it wasn't the bad experience that I thought it was, because it led me here. But yeah, I mean, Ohio, I generally think of as home. New Hampshire and Ohio are like, or Ohio and New York are my like what I think of as home. And um, I don't know, that's the thing about right now is that I don't really know what's next, and it's a weird feeling. Like, um, so much of my career field is going online. So honestly, I could live anywhere, but I don't really want to do that anymore. I kind of want to be in the classroom and with my students and, engaging with them in person and that kind of thing. So we'll see. I'm applying for jobs everywhere. I'm applying for jobs on the West Coast, on the East Coast, in the Midwest, and the northern part of like, the country. So we'll see. I don't know. I wish I could tell you what was next, but I don't really know. I don't really know. But you'll be one of the first people to know when I do figure it out.
Well, that's awesome. Now you mentioned the golden thread. That's some of the things in terms. I've had some personal healing processes myself where I've dealt with some things that have gone sideways in my personal life, and I'm like, yeah, all right, this is what I need to fix. This is what I need to learn. This is what I need to change. I'm grateful for the experience. That was I never used that particular term to describe it, but I know I went through a similar process. So I'd imagine, that'll resonate with a lot of people who listen to this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know you've been on TikTok of late and sometimes giving maybe tragicomic or golden thread ridden dating experiences. Could you tell me a little bit more about that and like what do you think of TikTok overall? I've heard good things about it and bad things about it.
Yeah. Well, my parents are not a big fan of it because they're like, you're giving all your intel, like this is all like intelligence that ends up in the hands of the CCP, which it probably is. I think they're
Yeah.
honestly watching us. But TikTok I think is great and terrible at the same time. Um, and maybe this is me. I don't know. I'm not a really big fan of people who I don't even know how to say this. There are a lot of people who go on there and they're like, oh, yeah, I had a mental health crisis. Ask me anything because now I'm an expert. Um, and I think it's important to share experiences because it can be really normalizing and um, for people, and it can make them feel comfortable and like heard, like they're not the only one who went through something. But I think a lot of people go on TikTok and they hear something and they're like, oh my God, I have to do that. or I have to do that. And that's the only thing that I worry about with TikTok really is, this kind of like people going on there and being like, oh yeah, I was in a mental hospital for a few weeks. Like, ask me anything about being in a mental hospital. And it's just kind of like, you know, um, but for my own purposes, I did not expect that post. So I made a video about a dating experience I had had, um, with a guy who seemed interested and was like pursuing me and everything. And then one day said, "Oh yeah, it's moving too fast." Because I asked him if there was a perfume that would like that I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to bother him. I know people who are bothered by perfume, so I asked him, what kind of perfumes are you okay with? And then he called me a couple of days later and said this is moving too fast, and I was so outraged. The only thing I knew to do, James, was to make a TikTok about it, and it blew up. It's like got over 100,000 views, and I wasn't expecting that to happen. But the fact that it did happen tells me that it's happening to a lot of people, um, particularly women. Um, I think I always was under the impression that dating was going to get easier when I got older, and dating has gotten harder as I've gotten older because it's just, I figured out people are going to be settled in. It's going to be great. Like, there's not going to be all of this like emotional chaos, and exactly the opposite. So, I made that video and I've gotten a lot of great feedback from girls who have had the same experiences. Um, but then I've also had a lot of vitriol aimed at me by men. And so it was kind of upsetting to me because I had a talk with Anthony about this. I said it would be nice if men could, and I'm by no means a man hater. Like my channel is not meant to do that. Because women do plenty of things wrong in dating and life as well. So, but there seems to be this undercurrent of, um, I think sometimes men being really like being apologists for bad male behavior. Um, and I just don't see that in the world of women. Like we're really quick to kind of point to each other. Okay, you're being an idiot right now. Cut it out. And so I've had a lot of men get really nasty with me over that video. Um, and I'm like, what compelled you to come on my video and make a nasty? I'm not talking about you. So why are you being so rude to me? And I just think it's a thing where, you know, um, they take criticism very seriously. And, even though I wasn't talking about them, maybe there was something in them that felt called out. And so they, felt the need to respond. So it's kind of been an interesting sociological study to watch the response to that video.
Yeah, it's
Um,
a microcosm of TikTok's funhouse. Like, people really love what you have to say. People really hate what you have to say. You wonder if the Chinese Communist Party is, it's digging its heels into you. It's they say Twitter's not real life. Well, TikTok isn't either. But
I don't think I
it's
don't think I don't think any of social media is real life, James.
yeah, that definitely true because I know, like in terms of my personal life, I mean, social media to me is a double-edged sword. It allows me to keep in touch with a lot more people than I otherwise be able to.
Mhm.
But the downside is it can be a time suck. It
Right.
can be, steered by various, governments to, be the Chinese government, our own government, or the European Union to steer people in a certain direction. It's and then, it ends up by definition if you spend too much time on social media, crowding out other stuff in your personal life that you should need to be doing to help you grow, as a good, effective, and impactful person.
Hmm. Well, and I think I've told you before too, one of my biggest concerns about social media, is that I think it fosters a false sense of what a close relationship actually is. Like a lot of people think, and I actually found this out the hard way. Um, I didn't, so I, that I was doxxed a few years ago. Like, and the person who doxed me, I just, we were friends on Facebook, and didn't really talk, but she seemed pretty nice and everything. And then she turned around and she, essentially made things very difficult for me,
Oh,
career
sorry to hear
wise.
about that. Yeah. Oh
Well,
no.
thanks. It's, I would obviously never do anything to to harm her or her family, but I'm just gonna say like karma sucks. You know what I mean? It comes full circle eventually. Um, but I actually have it on good authority that something happened to her like about a week after she did that to me. And I sometimes wonder, like, did she think I was involved in it, even though she was in Japan at the time? But it was just really awful. It was and it made me realize a lot of times we look at people online and we call them our friends.
Yeah.
They're not our friends. Like a friend is somebody that you have a close, intimate relationship with who you, and I do this is one of my major foci in my work with my clients too. And I do it all the time. So I have my clients do, particularly clients who have a hard time with boundaries. Um, I have them draw like a bullseye, like a dartboard or whatever. And I was like, okay, so who's in the very middle? Who's in the next layer out? Who's in the next layer out? And most people on social media who we're connected to are like in the outer circles. Like, I don't care what anyone says. Most people that we're connected to on social media are in the outer circles. And so, there are only a few people, and I've been working on that too. That was one of my New Year's resolutions this year is not to share so much of my own inner personal life on social media. And I fail sometimes, but um, I mean, ultimately, I think it's important to remember that a lot of people that we call friends really aren't friends. They're maybe acquaintances or, so it's important to remember that distinction. I think that's something that I always keep in mind.
I have a dry sense of humor about it. I have about 1,400 plus friends of varying degrees of closeness.
Hmm.
And, I kind of have that similar bullseye system. I have like my core four, my close friends, my first tier, you know, my second and third tier. I very rarely burn bridges with people unless they are really being toxic with me because you never know, who you might know in the background.
Yeah.
You might up get partnered with either for a job or, even the Daytona Show. Like I previously had somebody who I've known for 10 years. She runs this really good company called Babushi Tea. And I reached out to her and I had her on the Daytona Show a few weeks ago, or actually a few months ago. And she's got really a lot of good loose tea, like black, you know,
Mm.
mate, herbal teas, butterfly you know, pea flower. It's really good.
Sounds like I need to
You
check
know,
her out.
yeah, the point I was saying, is she was somebody like I met her at a conference 10 years ago, and she was in, kind of in the background of my life.
Hmm.
Met her again when I was in Toronto on vacation, and heard about her tea endeavor and started ordering her teas.
Yeah. So
So
you can order them
people,
online. I'll have to check that
yeah,
out. I love
Babushi tea. It's really
I
good.
love a good loose tea. In my refrigerator right now is hibiscus tea, like in a tea infuser. I love a good loose tea, especially for cold tea, for
Yeah,
iced tea.
I think you'd love this. Her name is Layla Pejman, and she was on one of my prior episodes, and she's damn good.
I'm still gonna challenge you though and tell you that probably a lot of those people are still just acquaintances, James. Like,
Y- Yes,
I
indeed.
always, I like to set that because, it's important to have that like boundary between who's an acquaintance and you've got your core four, right? Like your core four probably know
Yeah,
everything in your mind and in your heart and everything. And that's how it should be. But you never know what somebody's gonna do with, and maybe this is me being jaded because of what happened to me, but you never know what somebody might do with the privilege of knowing your inner workings. It's just so I think it's always a really good idea to sort of remember that and to have these like mental boundaries with certain people and just to kind of keep that in mind. Like that there are different levels of, you know, human connectivity.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because sometimes people can betray you. People, sometimes like in some of the common threads of people I've had falling outs with is, they've stepped on my toes and I didn't, you know, correct them, pipe up early enough, and it got too normalized until one fine morning we had a big blow up.
Hmm.
So that's another thing in terms of setting boundaries as well.
Well, as you meant, you probably saw my video on boundaries. I think you may have reposted it, even you
Yes, yes.
shared it. Um, boundaries are just a really big deal for me. Like, and I know my own tendency to sort of have weak boundaries when it comes to what I allow in other people to do, like how I encourage other people to interact with me. And that comes from being a bullied child who had no friends. So now sometimes I'm like, oh, in order to keep you as my friend, I really need to like let you do whatever you want, like in terms of like your interactions with me. And so sometimes I really have to work very hard at, and as I said in that video, boundaries are something that we offer to people who we do care about, because it's like, here's what I'm willing to tolerate. Here's everything outside of this box is what I'm not willing to tolerate. And it's okay to do that. It's not a mean thing. It's just a thing that we do to protect ourselves. And, it's never a bad thing to protect yourself.
Ironically enough, I've set boundaries with the people closest to me more than people in the outer tier,
Yeah, because they matter
precisely
to you.
because they are my most important relationships.
Yeah.
There have been times where, people who I've been really close to, be they family or friends,
Hmm.
where, there have been some patterns that I know if they continue as is, they're not going to be very healthy for our relationship. I even have like, one of my closer friends, I have a boundary where it's like, I will not get, dragged in her personal drama, you know, that you may have. Our friendship could not function without it.
Yeah. And there are some people, I think people serve different functions in our lives too. Some people bring the drama, some people bring the peace, some people bring the directness, some people, and I think it's a healthy thing to have people in your life who offer you different things. But it's true that some people in particular just require a little bit more finesse. That's just kind of how it is. And it can be a hard lesson to learn. And it's something that requires diligence, and you don't owe anybody an explanation for your needs or for what you need or for the boundaries that you set. That's really what it comes down to.
Wow, this is these are very good insights. This will definitely help me. This will definitely help a lot of my listeners who, you know, they they're pure-hearted people. They want to build good friendships. They want to hold on to relationship, either romantic, familial, or friendships, in the face of things that may not be healthy dynamics. And, setting boundaries and, deciding to speak up, when things are starting to go sideways.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
soft skill. It's not, it's simple, but it's not easy. And each person is different in terms of how you handle setting boundaries with them.
Yeah, and I like how you said that it's simple, but it's not easy. Like it's important, right? And sometimes we don't want to say something because we're afraid that it'll hurt somebody's feelings. Like, okay, well, I need you to like, back off a little bit, or I need you to like, give me some space or whatever. And we I think we are trained growing up and everything that we're not supposed to do that. Like I think a lot of times if you look back to a lot of us as children being told not to say no, I think that was setting us up for a lifetime of bad boundaries. Um, I have a professor um in my program where I'm a student. Um, and he said something to me once that I will never forget. And I tell my patients this all the time. You should always say no unless you have a very good reason to say yes. Um, and for a lot of people, that's totally the opposite of what we were raised to do, right? Like we were told, you don't say no. Especially if it's a certain person, you don't say no. But no is an important word. No is a word of self-preservation and a boundary setting. Um, and the quicker we learn that, I think the better off we are in terms of um, being able to understand what our needs are and being able to articulate to other people what we need from them. But here we are, a lot of us raised to not have the boundaries that we really essentially need in order to have healthy relationships. So it's almost as though I feel like for a lot of people, we become adults and we need to totally reconfigure how we view relationships and how we view our space that we pick up in relationships. So I've been thinking about that a lot as well.
Wow, that's wonderful. Do you have any other interests that you're tending to these days, or want to explore in the next 5 years or so?
Well, obviously, like, becoming a professor is really important for me. I love to teach teaching is something that brings me joy and happiness. And, um, so that's obviously something that I'm focusing on right now is building my career. And, I still hope to have a family. Um, getting married and having a child, those are important things to me as well, even though I'm a little long in the tooth. But, people are getting, women are getting pregnant, later and later these days. So I'm encouraged by that. I've been kind of looking into that. And so, yeah, that's really my 5-year plan is to like settle down, have a good career and a family, and, just kind of traveling and seeing the world, which is what I used to do before I immersed myself into school um, endlessly. Um, so that's kind of where I want to start traveling again. Now that the
That's all.
world is open up.
Well, where are you fixing to travel to next, or what are on toward the top of your wish list?
Well, I'm actually going to, it's not like an exotic vacation or anything, but I'm going to St. Louis in May for my friend's wedding.
Congrats!
Yeah, yeah, she's awesome. She's really cool. She is a therapist also. I met her at my first job out of grad school, and her fiance is a neonatologist.
Wow.
Um, Yeah, so he has a great but a rough job. He sees a lot of like, sick babies and um but they're a great couple and I'm looking forward to celebrating them. And I've actually never been to St. Louis before. So, and I'll get to reunite with a few of my other good friends from Ohio at that wedding as well. So I'm really excited about that. Um, I wouldn't mind just taking a really chill like beach vacation, James. Like I need that so bad right now. Like just going somewhere and like not having to do anything for a few days sounds amazing to me. So um that might be in the cards as well when I graduate. I don't really know. But um yeah, I think I'll do that. I think I'll wait to make a really nice vacation until I'm done with school. Hopefully I'll have a little bit of time between when I finish school and when I start whatever job I'm starting. And then I can go make a nice trip and just kind of like chill, you know. But who knows? There might be a move in my future. There might be a lot of other stuff. So, I'm right now. I'm focusing on being okay with the fact that I don't really know where my life is going.
Oh, that's great. Well, you got a beach town over from you.
I do.
I went to the Outer Banks beach, the beach in the Outer Banks. Just swim in the water there was just glorious.
Isn't
I
it
went like
nice?
a day after I finished up with y'all, and
Mhm.
I went to that barbecue joint you recommended, and I
Yeah.
realized I had enough time to see the Wright Brothers Memorial and take a swim on the beach, and I
Yeah.
absolutely loved it. And then same with Myrtle Beach, I love swimming there too.
Yeah. Well,
And
I'm
Joe's
glad.
Beach growing up, that no beach like that.
Well, and I'm glad you were able to go to um I think it's Old Colony Smokehouse or Old
Yes,
um
that's it. That's the name of the joint. Yeah,
Yeah, well, he was on Adam Hughes, the owner of that restaurant, was on Chopped on like the Food Network.
nice.
They did a special version with like barbecue pit masters. And then I just like connected with him because I thought he was really cool. And so like we don't really talk much anymore, but he's busy running his restaurant. So um it's not that far from me. So one of these, warmer weekends, I think I'm gonna you know, grab my gang and go on down there and try it out because he's promised me his smoked turkey is really good since I don't eat beef or
It
pork.
was. It was for the
Yeah,
record. It
was
was
it?
awesome. Yeah, I really liked it. Yeah,
That's
I
good
was
to
also
know.
speaking of TV personalities for food. I was just in Arizona and Vegas, with my friends Claire, Shauna, and Bob, and I went to Pizzeria Bianco in Phoenix with Chris Bianco. He's been on a show with Netflix, and
Hmm,
Claire and I got to meet him, and it's one of the best pizzas I've ever had. Like my
really?
dad, he's from the Bronx,
Yeah.
and he moved out to Phoenix to set up his pizzeria. And like the margarita pizza is just so it just dissolves right in your tongue.
Uh,
It's so heavenly to taste.
that sounds incredible. That sounds really good. Now I want pizza.
Yeah, I put a post up about some of my favorite pizzas of all time, be it New York, Boston, or elsewhere. And
Yeah,
Bianco's one of my favorite.
I feel like you should do like a travel blog because you have all you have all these like I always know Toscanini's, But I also feel like the ice cream you had here like was on your list, wasn't it? At was it Sweet Tooth or something? What was it called?
That's top five. The one you guys took me to, that's in my
Yeah.
top five. I
Okay.
mean, Jenny's is one of my favorites as well, and Sweet Republic out in Arizona.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's my friend Delcani, like one of the core four actually, who
Yeah.
went to Cornell with me. He recommended I do a travel blog, and I
Yeah.
may revisit it. I love to travel. I've done Patriots teams road trips. I've done a lot of trips back and forth to Long Island. I've been to Ireland 3 times, but not recently.
Yeah.
I love Nashville. I love taking my road trip to see you guys and to keep going to the Carolinas.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
And
you're welcome here anytime. Like you're welcome here anytime. We would love to see you again.
thank you so much, Danielle. Now to finish up, how can people get a hold of you both for Professor Perfume, for your TikTok tragic comedies, and most importantly, for your future endeavors?
Well, the best place to get a hold of me is definitely my YouTube channel. Well, Professor Perfume is my YouTube channel where I discuss perfume related things. I'm also I'm on Instagram as Stargazer Lily. That's my personal Instagram, but I also do have an Instagram for my perfume stuff, but I don't really keep it up too well. Also Professor Perfume. Um, and on TikTok, I am on what am I on? What am I on TikTok as, James? Am I also Stargazer Lily on TikTok?
Pretty sure, yeah, if I
I think I'm
recall.
also. Let me check it out really quick. Hold on. I should have known this, right? I don't know my own handle. Um, and hold on. Oh, shoot, sorry, I'm on a I think it's yeah, I think it might be Stargazer Lily. View profile. Let's see your Stargazer Lily 425.
Yes,
So you can find me on TikTok as Stargazer Lily 425. And I think that's also what my Instagram account is, also Stargazer Lily 425. Those are my favorite flowers and my birthday.
yes,
Super surprising there. And if you want to connect with me on Facebook about anything, um, reach out to James and he can give you I like to give a little incognito on Facebook because of some things that have happened. So if you would like to connect with me on Facebook, James, if that's okay.
that's
Um,
fine. Yeah, you can filter them through you, and then you can vet them.
yeah,
Yeah, that sadly went into tragic as opposed to tragic comic, and we don't want a
yeah.
repeat of that.
Yeah, no, we don't. I mean, that's an entirely different, maybe when I'm done with school, I'll come on and I'll talk about that with you. But right now,
Yes,
I'm just trying to get done. But just another example of how you don't know who you can trust, and it's always a very important thing to have those boundaries and to remember that you're worth having those boundaries. But for now, the best ways to contact me are again through James if you want to connect on Facebook, Stargazer Lily on Instagram and TikTok, and my YouTube channel is Professor Perfume. If there's
that's right.
anything you want me to review or talk about, let me know.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, if you maybe do a video on my two favorites.
Yes, I will
And I
for
just
sure.
realized you're a birthday. I just remembered you're a birthday twin of one of my favorite singers, Maggie Rogers.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah, she's a great listen. Uh,
I'll have to listen.
on and off again. Yeah, on and off. Light on. About people moving in and out of your life, and she's amazing live.
That
So
actually just brought something. Maybe we can do another one where we talk about music because I've been exposed to a lot of new music too lately. So I would definitely love to come back on if you'll have me and talk a little bit about music as well. So
yeah, I would love to do a separate episode, or continue with this episode, or do an episode in the future about music.
yeah,
And
let's do
and
it.
and you know what? Do you have time to keep going?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah, we can do that. We can
Yeah.
keep going for a
What
few minutes.
what are
Yeah.
what are your favorite groups and or musicians?
Let me bring out my Spotify. Let me bring up my Spotify. This is what I need to help. I've always been a really big fan of David Gray. David Gray is one of my favorite like individual musicians. You may know him. He sang Babylon, which is like his most well known. I have to admit, I really do like T Swift's music. I try really hard not to. Um, but I like a lot of like Latin music. I'm a really big fan. We have some bands in common, James, like Florence and the Machine
Yes.
and things like that. So all of those types of music I really like as well. And I was just recently introduced to um I didn't there used to be a thing on here like a group called the Magnetic Fields. Um Somebody introduced me to that. Also been listening to a little bit of Neutral Milk Hotel. One of my best friends is a really big fan of music by um, like LCD Sound System, if you've heard of
Nice.
them.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, why am I blanking on the name? I love the song Heat Waves. God, who sings it, James? I'm totally losing it here.
Heat waves. I probably would know it if I heard it.
Oh, Glass Animals, duh. Glass
Oh yeah.
Animals.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
them at Firefly. They were one of the
Did you really?
headliners. Yeah,
How
they're a
was
good
it?
listen. Yeah, I've been to
It was good.
Firefly twice. I went for one day in 16 because I was really fixing to see Lady Florence.
Yeah.
And I didn't get out of there till 3 in the morning. I saw like 20 bands that day. Like I
Whoa.
ended up like seeing Atlas Genius. I saw Churches,
I
Catfish
love
and the Bob.
churches.
I love Churches. I know you. I think you were gonna see them, or you and or your friends saw
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, I ended up not being able to go. It was too soon after my surgery, I think. But
Oh man,
um,
they're so good live.
Flogging Molly was just here
Yeah, they're
across the
good.
street. And I didn't go because I think I was teaching or something. It was on Valentine's Day, so I was teaching. Teaching absolutely ruins my life sometimes with doing things socially. But I just found out that Guster is coming to the concert hall across the street, so I'll probably go see Guster if you're familiar with them.
Yes, they're from around my home turf. I
Are
know I
they?
saw them at Boston Calling once, and they're a lot of they have a big Boston fan base. That
Really?
is for sure. Yeah, they're
Oh,
they're
that's
they're a
cool.
really good listen. I've started to become a little bit more countrified, and the people at
Okay.
F45 where I go to for fitness, like sometimes I'll wear Johnny Cash or Jason Aldean t-shirts, and they're thinking like I'm a country boy from Long Island. You
Well,
know,
that's actually interesting. In case you do want to make a visit here this summer, James. So we have a thing right happens right across the street from my apartment. It's called the Patriotic Festival, and Sam Hunt is actually headlining it this year. Um, but also, then Virginia Beach got upset because the Patriotic Festival used to be in Virginia Beach, but then they moved it to Norfolk. Um, and so Virginia Beach was like, okay, well, we are going to have our own music festival that's even better than the Patriotic Festival. So here it is. So let me see when it's going to happen. Um, it's going to be at the ocean front this summer. Um, and it goes from June 23rd to the 25th. It will be Miranda Lambert, Thomas Rhett, Luke Bryan, Jody Messina, Cole Swindell, and a bunch of other people I don't know. But so there's a very good music scene around here. I saw a month after my Achilles tendon surgery when I was still not able to walk, I saw Train, which is my one of my all-time favorite band is Train. Um with Jewel and Blues Traveler. So I do like a good concert, for sure. Concerts are the best. Um so
my top
just
five of
been
all time are Rush, Springsteen, Sarah Bareilles, Florence and the Machine, and Foo Fighters.
Yeah, Foo
And
Fighters also really good too. And
they're
also,
really intense. Yeah, really
yeah,
intense live. And Sarah Bareilles means a lot to me on a personal level.
yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
yeah, I know. And it was such a thrill finally got to meet and thank her in person at her book signing
Yeah.
in
Well,
2015.
I if you can see Waitress, you
I
really
have.
need to
I've seen Waitress.
you've
Yeah, I
seen
love Waitress.
Waitress.
Yep.
Yeah, the song in there, what is it called? It literally makes me cry every time I hear it.
She used to be
Uh,
mine.
she used to be
Or
mine, yeah. That song makes me so emotional. Like it really,
yeah,
I
I
it resonates.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah, her and Rachel Yamagata will often bring me to tears. You know,
Yeah.
they got me through. They got me through my divorce and a low point in my life. I remember listening to both musicians incessantly at that time, and
I'm
just a
going
lot
to
of
I'm going to share with you somebody that you need to listen to. Her name is
okay then.
Caro. Her name is Caro Emerald, like Caroline, but like Caro, just Caro. Caro Emerald. I love her. Her music is so good. It's really peppy. Like it alternates between like peppy and upbeat and also like really sultry and kind of like soul based and everything. I guess is the best way I can put it. So I really enjoyed Caro Emerald a lot. I actually learned a lot of the music I've learned about in my life has been through figure skating, especially
Yeah,
I've loved it.
Shazam the figure skating. They're playing a little bit, and then you Shazam whatever they're playing, and there you go.
Yeah. Well, I love classical music. Classical music is my absolute favorite type of music. I belong to the Symphony Society here, and I go see live symphony music whenever I can. But um, you know, in terms of like other music, also the Tragically Hip, one of my favorite Canadian bands, along with BNL. I like Bare Naked Ladies still.
Yeah, I
Um,
saw them last year. Me
yeah,
and Chris got
yeah, I saw them quite a while ago. I
Toad the
saw them
Wet
in concert.
Sprocket. Yeah, and
Yeah, oh,
then
I'd love to see Code the Wet Sprocket. Yeah, I've
and
seen.
then
I saw Train, Blues Traveler, and Jewel. Jewel, who gets better with age, by the way. When I was younger, I saw Buster Rhymes accidentally. And like Matchbox 20, Lifehouse, Everclear. My first concert ever was in Sync.
oh wow,
Um,
yeah. I actually
yeah.
went to NSYNC with my then wife at the old Foxborough Stadium
Did you?
about 20 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen New Kids on the Block in concert several times. Paula Abdul, 98 Degrees, all the typical boy bands from the
Oh,
90s and
nice.
stuff. Yeah. So
I think we're
I
both
love.
Nicole Atkins fans.
Hmm?
I think you and I are both Nicole Atkins fans.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I like Nicole Atkins
I
also.
like
Yeah.
her a lot. I think she's the precursor to Lana Del Rey. Anybody is a Lana Del Rey fan out there, give Nicole Atkins a listen and thank me later.
Hmm.
And also like kind of a darker version of Lana would be Banks. She does like a lot of
Hmm.
sultry, intense R&B. Like I saw
Yeah.
her at Firefly in 17, and
Mm.
on her birthday actually. I was like in the second or third row. Like I got to see her. I think I saw Weezer. I saw The Weekend.
Weezer.
Phanogram I've seen. Bob
Yeah.
Dylan. Um, there's so many at the big music festivals,
Oh
Boston Calling
yeah.
and Firefly, that a lot of them, a lot of the names are going to escape me.
Hmm.
I also
Weezer.
have
I'd
like
love to.
the lawn pass at Great Woods in Mansfield. So like me, Deb, and
Hmm.
Jeff are going to be seeing a bunch of bands over the summer. Like so far on the lineup is Janet Jackson, Chris Stapleton, Dave Matthews. I'm sure Jimmy Buffett will likely be on there. I think even Nickelback.
Oh really?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who
Nickelback.
else. Shania, Shania's coming as well.
Shania. I saw the Wallflowers right before COVID happened. It was my last concert, but I was actually just looking at the local concerts. We're actually Janet Jackson and Ludacris are also coming here in May, so maybe I'll have to go see it. But also Matchbox 20 is coming.
Yeah, I think they're
Uh,
coming too. Yeah, if I recall.
today.
I,
Yeah,
I, I think imagine whatever your venue's at is probably a similar sized outdoor venue
yeah, it's the Virginia
to
Beach
the one in
Amphitheater,
Mansfield.
the Veterans Home Loan Amphitheater, and another thing. Actually, my friends and I are gonna. There's a guy on TikTok. His name is oh my God, why am I having trouble with names today? Kevin James Thornton. He's a comedian. He makes really funny videos on TikTok. And my friends and I are gonna make a trip to Richmond, which is only a couple hours away from
Wow, that's
here.
great.
Yeah, we're gonna go see him. Um, there's so much fun stuff going on around here. Like so many. Nate Bargatze is coming, so I may go see him. Chris Rock was just here a couple weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
couldn't go see him because I was teaching per usual. But
better
um,
offer teaching.
yeah, right. um, but he did talk. I had a patient go to see him, and she said he did discuss the slap. So he
Yeah,
said,
yeah, no,
um,
like I'm pretty selective about my comedy,
mhm,
because there's a lot of comedy that I call it quote unquote comedy. It's way too shrill for my tastes.
mhm,
But like my favorite of all time is Dave Chappelle. One time
yeah,
I was in Providence. I was going to this really beautiful calming event that they have like during the summer months, or mostly called Waterfire, where the light braziers up on the river.
mhm,
And it's just that they'll play like a lot of classical world music, and I'll bring my journal and just chill and get a grip on things.
yeah,
One night I happened to park in front of the Providence Performing Arts Center,
okay.
and I see this name in the marquee, Dave Chappelle. I'm like, well, we're having a change of plans tonight. I'm going to be catching Waterfire on the back end.
Yeah, I would see Dave Chappelle in a heartbeat. But actually, you mentioning this made me think maybe Google like what's coming here this summer. Matchbox 20 and the Wallflowers are coming in July. So I'll obviously have to go see them because I love the Wallflowers. I always loved them in the 90s and now I still love them. So basically, I'm still living in the 90s in terms of my musical taste, James. So like there's not much, look like in terms of modern music. Really, I like Lana Del Rey a lot. If you, I can see you liking Lana Del Rey.
I like Lana. Yeah,
Yeah,
I literally when I first heard Lana, I'm like, is this Nicole Atkins' new song? Literally, that's
yeah,
what was going through my brain. And I
yeah.
believe it was video games, and then I Shazammed and figured out it was Lana, and then obviously she took off, and then
Mhm,
Banks I stumbled across on during a fashion show,
mhm.
and I got to meet her in person, and there's this really sweet family from the Canadian Maritimes that I got to meet that night as well.
I
That
love the
trip that I took to
Maritimes.
Moncton was part of that
Oh,
trip, seeing those guys. Where I
yeah.
did the tidal bore in Moncton, where the Bay of Fundy pushes the river back twice a day.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did that as well. There's like I'll give you a random musician you probably haven't heard of called
Mhm.
Charlotte OC. She is
Oh,
my friend LBR turned me on to her. She lives in England. She's a fellow Liverpool FC fan, so 100 extra points to her. She's kind of
how do you
in that
how do you spell
line.
her last name?
Charlotte OC, the letters O and C. Like her actual last name is O'Connor, so hence OC.
Oh, okay. Here she is. I found her on Spotify. Okay.
Yeah, she's a great listen.
Okay.
I'll give Carol Emerald a listen, let you know what
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, another person you should look at. He and I have actually been in touch on social media a little bit. Steve Hackman. Steve Hackman is amazing because he matched, and I've seen him do one, and I was supposed to see him do another in Richmond, but I had family visiting. But Steve Hackman will do mashups of like Tchaikovsky and Drake, or like my favorite one of his is Aaron Copland and Bonnie Bear, because Bonnie
Oh
Bear
my
is
gosh,
great.
Copeland is so majestic.
Yeah, right. And so he does like that. You should definitely check him out. He does his own original pieces as well, but he also has done Beethoven and Coldplay. No, wait, he does Brahms and Radiohead. He does Brahms and Radiohead, Beethoven and Coldplay. So it's just a really cool mashup of really awesome, modern-ish and like classical music. So I really enjoyed his music. He's very talented.
Well, then Evan, you'll like the violin girl. I came across her at a Japanese restaurant. My
The
friend
Violin
Lauderdale
Girl.
invited me. Yeah, it's violin GRRL, and she does like she'll like pivot effortlessly between classical and modern pop music. She'll play in the background. I got to meet her. I got to talk to her quite a bit afterward,
Mhm.
and she was a really good listen. And if you're into classical mass ups, she's going to be in your wheelhouse.
Oh, awesome. Well, then, do you also know if you're into music like that? Vanessa May is really great with violin, MAE, and also Lindsay Sterling. I feel like you know about Lindsay. I
I
feel like
love
you,
Lindsay. I love
yeah,
Lindsay Sterling. Yeah, I saw
yeah.
her in Evanescence in Mansfield a few years
Ooh,
ago.
that's so cool.
It's Vanessa. What's her last name?
Vanessa May, MAE.
I mean, speaking of Vanessa, I know Deb and I are seeing Vanessa Carlton at City Winery in a few
Are
weeks.
you?
Yeah, I have way too many CDs, and I was actually dredging up the CDs so that she can autograph them, in a few weeks. And yeah,
Awesome.
you kind of wish that there was a city winery near you too. You'd probably have a bunch of shows up your alley, and
Yeah.
the wines are the red blends are damn good.
Yeah, I can't drink red wine because I'm allergic to nitrates
Oh
and
man,
tannin and stuff. I
yeah,
know. If I do drink anything, it's white wine,
I think
but
I
yeah,
do want one too.
that sounds like it'll be a good show. I'm kind of jealous that you can get like you get to see. I mean, people come here, but not always. So, enjoy that. You'll have to let me know how it is.
Yeah, I'll certainly keep you posted, and you keep me posted your batch of shows this year.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. It's cool that I mentioned that Maggie's a birthday twin, and we'll go off on a whole big thing of music. That's awesome. A lot of my friends are big into good music. A lot of my listeners I know are going to be into it. So it's you've definitely been so informative on so many levels, and I think people in my orbit, would love to get to know what you got to say too.
Yeah.
And I look forward to
Awesome.
future episodes. Yeah, about some of your other experiences. In the months
Yeah,
and years ahead too.
absolutely. Happy to come back anytime.
Well, thank you so much, Danielle. Anything else to tell my listeners before we finish up for the
Not
afternoon
today.
or for
As
the
you would
morning?
say, James, this was an episode in full.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it's bordering on Joe Rogan, 2-3 hour territory.
Yeah. Well, we
So
are
I,
both
I'm
we
I'm
are both chatters, so it doesn't surprise me. But I thank you so much for having me. It's been really great being here.
thank you so much, Danielle, for coming on. And thank you coming on to Jimmy Daytona Show. Give her a follow and all the best.
Thanks, James. You too.